beneficiary. No one wrong with me. Life will be happy, will be ecstasy. Come on, baby. Beneficiary, come along with me. Life will be happy, will be ecstasy. Expectancy, drug and one man politics no longer exists. No more terrorists, no more monkey business. With expectancy, love and unity. It's democracy now in my country. Join the jamboree. We go jam, yes indeed. Say trust and concede. It is all agreed. Now it's Aristide who's gonna lead. Now it's not as before. We have teaching the law. Tun could run away. There's no more attaché. President Clinton set us free, and the feeling is so great. Baby, let's celebrate democracy in Haiti. Chante, liberté, liberté. Raoul said, Rascouille. So raise every voice and start the rejoicing for democracy in Haiti. Chante, liberté, liberté. Democracy in Haiti. To send love at you, we'll be glad, I'm sure, to know democracy and civility has finally reached to Haiti. Emperor Saluk, a smart man in my book, with Jeffrey and Richer, Salnav and Sachet, must be quite happy now for Haiti. But confident Theodore, Boris and Zamor, Bill Van Gullion Sam, man they plundered the land. In 1950, the Americans came in, establishing their own puppet regime. But now it's not as before. Self-respect will restore. We have no fear of rap. We go cross them a slap for the advantage they take on we. From the home of the brave, the Lord sent to save democracy in Haiti. Chante, liberté, oh Aristide, liberté, liberté. People may see the glee. Stamnan and Carter be deep in the lake. Them do the things for Haiti. Oh God, for Aristide, for democracy in Haiti. There's a tiny village who find life so sweet. They despise the poor since the days of yore. They give their salutes in Haiti. Pressure from Petion and Canal Barron, but underestimate Dr. Finole was nice and easy down in Haiti. Pressure again began under the valley hand. The Tuntun Makut gang terrorized my nation. When Papa Duck was son, baby Duck had to run. Namphy was worse than Papa Duck and son. Now it's not as before. Coup d'etat nevermore. Michel France Friday, me and me run away. We don't money in the treasury. High society lost their cool when we just wear a hole for democracy in Haiti. Chante, liberté, liberté, liberté from New York to Miami. The There was help from all over the entire diaspora for democracy in Haiti. Chanted, liberté, 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 people living for democracy in Haiti. We tried prayers enough, we tried voodoo stuff, but Satan's was too tough, the army was too rough, was pure misery, young and hating. Their atrocities was like a disease, but amnesty came in, they spread the guillotine, lucky take me flee, young and hating. Then came Jambotron telling the nation, seek reconciliation, don't put tie around the neck. Vengeance, don't try to get honor and respect. Democracy is all we will accept. Now it's just as before. We have options galore. Everything to arrange, the whole system is changed. Dictatorship's no more, you'll see. So from now on, sing for flood, we'll be one man, one vote for democracy in Haiti. Chanting, liberté, all our skin, liberté, liberté, the people in the glee. How will Satan and Carter make them sign the paper for democracy in Haiti? Chanting, liberté, liberté, liberté. Si c'est mauvais ou fait, c'est mauvais ou pas ouais. Si c'est bon ou fait, c'est bon ou pas ouais. Nous pas prêts marcher, nous pas prêts danser, non pour que crier, non pour que souffrir. Il s'est fait manger, il fait pas souffrir. Mon reste c'est pour yon cas, papa bon de la bande, liberté, 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 nous pas faire marcher, non faire passer, non pour que crier, non pour que souffrir. Il s'est fait manger, il s'est fait souffrir. Mon monsieur c'est pour yonda, papa pas de papa moi. Liberté, 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 liberté,
Did you know?
Oh, well, it's Tuesday evening, and welcome to Politics 101. It's Tuesday night for some of you who are in Europe, Tuesday afternoon, where I am on the west coast of the United States of America. Welcome to all of you. We come in there with the sound of the Caribbean, the greatest musical genre ever produced in the history of mankind. You heard it here. You heard it here. The greatest musical genre ever produced by humanity. You're not going to get that in Madras and Calcutta. You're not going to get it in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, only in our Caribbean. And you were listening there to the voice of the greatest singer, the greatest musical voice in the history of humanity, Slinger Francisco, born in Grenada, raised in Trinidad, grounded in Guyana, the greatest musical voice, not only of his generation, but of all generations. The incomparable mighty sparrow singing about Haiti, taking us, as we say in the Caribbean, back in time. There was a time when there were glimpses of democracy in Haiti, the time of Aristide, and their sparrow was celebrating that moment as Calypso does. Calypso chronicles moments in our historical journey. So those of us who see Haiti in stress and peril today and think it was always so, we return to the Calypsonian who tells us, no, there was a stop sign at a certain point when Aristide came to office in Haiti, and there was hope. Sparrow capturing that. But he does not only capture the moment, he uses the moment to take us back in time to the beginning of the Republic, bringing us right through, including the invasion of the United States between 1915 and 1934. He critiques the leadership inside of Haiti, and he celebrates the moment. Today, as we speak, Haiti is facing peril again, facing dark times, facing times that we hoped had gone and never to come again. But Haiti shall rise again. I am confident of that. I am confident of that. God will send another Aristide, as he does. He sent Toussaint Louverture, he sent Dessalines, he sent Aristide, and he will send someone again to lead the children of Israel out of bondage. Haiti, the West Africa of the Caribbean. Haiti, African more than Africa itself. Haiti, always the beacon of hope for us. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. I'm glad to be Guyanese. I'm glad to be West Indian. I'm glad to be the son of Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines. I'm glad to be part of that lineage because we are one people in the real sense, not the fake sense. We are a people transplanted from far lands, coming to this land that we call Guyana, part of the larger Caribbean. And we have made this place our home. We have brought with us roots, R-O-O-T-S. We have brought with us culture, and we have turned those cultures into a mosaic that the world envies. It is only from the Caribbean that you will produce a Garfield Sobers from a tiny island called Barbados. You put a cricket ball and a bat in his hand, and he became the genius of all geniuses, only in our Caribbean. Only in our Caribbean would you find a Bob Marley, a school dropout, the son of a white father and a black mother, turning Jamaica and our Caribbean, explaining our blackness and brownness in a way that none other can do. Only in our Caribbean, the mighty sparrow, as I said, is incomparable. Only in our Caribbean, in one generation, will you find a Cheddy Jagan, a Forbes Burnham, a Janet Jagan, a Martin Carter, Rory Westmus, Jane Phillips Gay, a UC Quayana. Only in our Guyana, our Caribbean, one generation, in one little strip of land, will produce those personages, those spirits, and we ought to be proud of who we are. Some say, I am an Africanist, I am. Some say, I am a radical, I am. But I am a Guyanese. I am not giving that up to anybody, because what we call Guyana is a work that was fashioned by the hands of those who had the presence of mind to struggle to make it possible for you and me to be here today in 2024. It is why love pours down on us. And it is that love that we take forward every day as we confront various fashions of oppression. And we have always beaten oppression. And we will continue to beat oppression. Politics 101 is the place to be at this time, Monday through Friday. And we are here tonight. Our brother, GHK Lall is here. I always doubt Guyana. Not Guyana, the country. I always doubt the Guyana that says certain things are not possible. Sometimes we want to create make-believe things, but I believe in the real thing. In the real thing, it is possible in our Guyana for African voices of reason and courage to capture the hearts of Indian Guyanese and Portuguese and Amerindians. It is equally possible for Indian voices to find a place in the cries of Africans, to the pleadings of Africans. That is the test of multiracialism. It is not when an Indian man and a black woman go on the stage and hold hands and hug and say, we are a ticket. That is not multiracialism. Multiracialism is when one can feel for others across the ethnic divide. And when those across the ethnic divide have the capacity to absorb the energies of someone from another ethnic group who cries with them, who struggles with them, who understands their pain. Oh, the test of our humanity is not just how well we get along with our family. Whether that family is the nuclear family, whether that family is the ethnic family, the test is not just how well we get along with the family, but how well we're able to understand the other family across the road. That is the test of multiracialism. The ability to feel across the divide. And the ability for those across the divide to recognize that feeling and to rub it up together and make it something workable. That is the Guyana I am trying to help socialize. I'm not interested in symbolism only. Symbolism has its place. It's good to see a black face, an Indian face, a Portuguese face, a Chinese face, an Amerindian face. It's good to see the faces next to each other. But I'm concerned with the inner reaches of humanity, finding ways to bring us into one reason, not one unreason, one reason, and to give us a reason for being. That's what I am about. Good evening. I love you all because you all are Guyanese and you all are West Indian and you all are mixed up the diasporas meeting in these crossroads, because that's what these little island and the mainland spaces are. It's the crossroad the crossroad of what they call today modernism without our small islands. What they now call capitalism would never be without the examples of our resistance in the plantation. And as we removed ourselves in glory, we created civilization. That is what real socialism is about. We found oneness with the Christ child as he hung on the cross. We may not know, we cannot tell what pains he had to bear. But we do know he died for us. We know that because we were dying all the time. And on the third morn, we rose. We did it not once, not twice, but we continue to do it. And that is why Easter has such a resonance with us. It is what makes us special. When God was sharing the gifts of humanity, he gave us some special gifts. We play the ass with it most of the time. But there are times when we catch ourselves and we say, we are part of civilization. We're going to do it tonight. Big show. GHK Lall is here, and we're going to be talking about the issues of the day. I want to thank all of you who came to Brother UC's 99th birthday party. And it was quite a party. It went on for a few days. Not a physical party. But it moves me to read the words of young people, older people, people in between, paying homage to one of our own. In our binary culture, political culture, where we divide things between the Indian and the African side, or we see our political reality through Burnham and Jagan. You know, we have two fathers of the nation. Think how stupid it is, you know, fathers. In all of that, we stopped over the last couple of days to recognize that there is more than the binary. As I said, what Kwayana did for me and for so many of us, he created a home for us, a political home, a political space in a bifurcated society. He created a space, that space of independence, that contrary space, that space where we can do our thing and to say, that space in which we can say no. No. You see, the binary doesn't permit us to say no. We got to go along with the race. We got to go along with the party. We got to go along with the comrade leader. On both sides, we can't say no. What Kwayana did is created a space for us to say no. I remember in 1971 when he and Burnham fell out. And the people in Buxton who loved both men, they were in torture. I was too small, as we say. I was a child. And I knew something was happening because in my house, my aunt who raised me as a mother, who raised us after my mother migrated, she said, I am taking a side. I am taking teacher Sydney's side. What she may not have known then is that she liberated me from the fear of binary that comes with being in the binary. When you're in the binary, you fear the other side. You fear the other side. She released me from fear. I didn't have to fear. I could be independent. I could say no. And all my life since then, I have had the privilege of saying no when I feel I should say no. And I watch sometimes with pain when other mouths, in the words of Martin Carter, become muzzled. Guyana released me and released a host of others from being muzzled, the mouth being muzzled by the food it eats. Thank you very much. Let's roll. Let's bring in GHK Lall and let's talk tonight in a space that we can say no. What I call the Guyana space. Good evening, Brother Gabriel.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, David. Good to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you, my brother. I think you represent something that is always needed in bifurcated societies like ours. As I said just now, I'm not interested in having an Indian face and an Amerindian face. I'm interested in forces that are able to feel the pain of the other and is able to do so in a way that allows the other to absorb the love that flows like a river. To sound a little like Dr. Martin Luther King, whose death anniversary we celebrated last week, flowing down like a river. The love, the capacity to absorb the love. I hope I've not embarrassed you.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You know Guyana, have you? All Guyanese know him.
Well, I know of him. I've never met him, never spoken
You've never
to him,
met
but
him.
I definitely know of him. I heard of his name when I was a little boy in the home. I heard about Sidney King and Askria and then UC Guyana. And I heard about Jagan and Burnham. And people are hearing us today. But the name Guyana, UC Guyana, elder, ideal, a standard, a legend in his time. That's a rarity. A legend in his time in a bifurcated society, a truncated society, a society where we have to be at each other's throats to justify our existence in one space or the other. Guyana was distinctive and distinguished himself for knowing when the time came for him to spread his wings. I wonder what I was going to say here tonight of a man that I barely know. But I saw your lengthy epistle in Demerara Waves and Stamp and the other media, your tribute to him, a fine human being, the finest one that you know. That's what you closed it out with. And I said to myself, what do I say about this man? What can I add? How does he strike me? He strikes me as a man who could have stayed where he was, be contented where he was, first with Chetty Jagan, towed the line, and who knows where he would have been. It certainly would have been the Guyana we know today. He could have stayed with Forbes Burnham and pretended not to see. And what kind of Guyana we would have had today? Where would I be and you be? But because of him being willing to go into the unknown, in the pursuit of what he thought, what he felt to his soul was a higher cause, a higher calling, the national calling. He was first. He knew the were going to come, and he was ready for them. But I can't begin to imagine how it has never stopped. But a man that is brave beyond words, a man that's a leader quietly from the back. Who wants to be greatest must be the least among you. Who wants to be first must be prepared to be last. And every time Quayana was close to that pinnacle of power, to the people in power, he went and joined the back of the line. He started over. He started over again and again. And we are a better place for it. There's a greater degree of sagacity in this country, political wisdom, because of the sacrifices that UC Quayana made. And I think he stands as a role model in a country where yes is the only word in the political alphabet. Yes, men. Yes, sir. Yes, and nothing else. Yes, it has to be this way. Yes, it must be no other way. Quayana showed that there's another way. He showed us that we can carve out our own space without losing our identity. I hear you talk about being an Africanist and a radical. I talk about being a universalist. There is the Indianness in me, but first and foremost, there's the Guyanese man in me. People like Chetty Jagan, Forbes Burnham, UC Quayana, definitely way up there, are a part of my makeup. I am awed. I am awed to be in this space. I am awed to be sharing with my fellow Guyanese of a man of this caliber, from this backward place, this so-called backward place that oil has lubricated us into the attention of the world. But we've had our glorious fellows long before. We've had our quiet warriors from time in from time infinite, and UC Quayana is one of those. When you see he writes lesser and lesser now, 99 years. Come on, milestone, if ever there was one. Not three score and ten, but almost 30 past three score and ten. That's about half of of where the yardstick is. And when he writes, there's that temperateness that is so needed in this society. I can see him still teaching, that he's a young man in his golden years or silver years, whichever it is, still trying to cut through the thicket of the politics, the wild politics of Guyana, the badlands of Guyanese politics. Because unless you agree, you will be aimed at. Unless you toe the line, a line will be drawn across you. You are a deviationist. And Quayana was not afraid to be a deviationist. He is a role model for me. There are very few role models for me in this life. Jesus Christ is one. My wife who departed is one. And Quayana is one. I wish there were more. I wish there were more that I can point to in our political spectrum. Our leaders, our national leaders who have got so much in their hands, who have got so much of the hopes and dreams and aspirations and the destiny of our fellow Guyanese. People who are not of voices like ours, people who are not of the context of ours, people who are not of the skills of the two of us and many more like us. Those are the ones, the majority, that need for people like me to speak and see no color, no class, no condition, no culture. What I should see is a fellow Guyanese man and woman, a brother and a sister. And nobody will take that away from me. Nobody took that away from UC Quayana. They like to try to pigeonhole him into a box. Oh, he was for this. I know he was for that. But look at the universality of the man. Look at the completeness of the man. And I see a man growing over the years, someone who was never and still is at 99 years of age, still is not static, still is not stuck in the past or in the bitterness of memory or in a hole from which he refuses to extricate himself. He extricates himself time and again and seeks to carry us along with him. My God, if you can do that and I can do that at a fraction of the level that he has attempted to do, then we will be men among men. We will be a man. We will be like Kipling, and is it Kipling or Wordsworth? If this was so, then this could be possible. Then this would have happened. If. Quayana was more than if. He was more than how. He was the one who tested the paradigms, the accepted truths that are stuffed down our throats, and said, well, what about this? And why not this? And how about if we go to that next level? So now in time, the old truths fall away, are proven to be fallible, and new ones come about. But at the end of the day, there's a core, and it starts with us being honest men. I keep pounding away at that before the president, before the vice president, before the opposition leader, and say, gentlemen, brothers, unless we have got that inherent and intrinsic honesty in ourselves, we ain't going nowhere. And I believe that UC Quayana has that simple honesty, that human dignity, that unfathomable sincerity and decency that has brought him to where he is, and which is why we can speak so effusively and prodigiously right about him.
GHK Lall, in his a tribute, if you will, to the living Quayana, because he's still alive. A lot of young people ask in the blogs, are his faculties still intact? I can tell you, very much intact. As you see, he writes, as Gabriel said, he writes sometimes, and the only reason he's not writing more is that his sight is not well, so he cannot see to write, so he has to get help for him to dictate his letters and so on and so forth. If that were not so, you would have been seeing letters every day. His faculties are still intact. His conversations are not 5 minutes and 10 minutes. I know when I speak with him, I have to set out blocks of 2 hours in order to think, because he asks me and he probes on everything from Haiti to Gaza to Guyana to Venezuela. He wants always to be probing. He hears that the company trench in Buxton has no water. He wants me to talk to him about that. And then he tells me why there is no water in the trench. He knows the back dam of Buxton so well. And enormous human being. Thanks, Gabriel, for that tribute to my political father. Gabriel, we have been plastered with the UN Human Rights Committee over the last month. Guyana's had human rights challenges, as she must, over the decades. But this last month falls into a category of its own, in the way in which the Human Rights Committee of the United Nations came at Guyana and opened us for the world to see beyond the oil and gas. That is my formulation. How do you formulate that gaze of the United Nations Human Rights Committee?
Well, it certainly went very deep. It went very deep, and it went on for very long. People have said that the government was caught napping. Mm-mm. The government was forced to deal with reality. The reality that you know, and again, how you're boxed, the reality that I can personally attest to because it has happened to me. The vice president says, oh, in the interest of transparency, he wants names. I volunteer mine. Doesn't have to look far. Doesn't have to look far. Look at the areas that the United Nations Human Rights Committee, this committee of 18 independent people, people who have heard the cries that you spoke about, the cries of Guyanese saying, we are being suppressed, we are being killed, we are being discriminated against, we are being denied of our rights. We signed these documents, Dr. Hines, International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, I think that's what it is. And the second article says, the state party must ensure the rights of all, not some, not the majority, but all. Article 6, and I'm going to stretch it, speaks about the arbitrary deprivation of life. Article 6 of the International Covenant of Civil Rights and Political Rights. Civil and political rights. I will take that away beyond the death penalty and apply it to extrajudicial killings. Oh, we talked about that. Or in Boston, Quindon Bacchus. One man shot in his bed, another one shot several times, and some stories made up. They're one kind of people. Oh, and all kinds of stories come up, and all kinds of attitudes and actions are taken against those who dare to say, what went on there and what went on there is not lawful. And the media, Article 17, 18, 19, speaks about freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of ideas. Ideas, my fellow Guyanese, our listeners, our brothers, our sisters, regardless of your color, of your persuasion. We who have been the brunt of it, in the brunt of it, can talk to it, can assert to it, and can attest to it. We have been talking about it and writing about it in our media and speaking upon it on this platform, the David Hines Show, Politics 101. I make some cameo appearances and very far apart because I really can't do more. And that's to my regret. But I've said over and over again, you can hold some of us as poster children of the excesses that have gone on in this country from the state party, the ruling PPP government, as directed against those whom it doesn't recognize as merely citizens speaking in a conscientious manner, expressing their ideas free from fear. They see enemies. They make you into enemies. And you cannot suppress that. In communist Russia, in Stalinist Russia, there were leaks that made it into the Western world, into the so-called free world. In this 21st century, in this era of the internet, of instantaneous technology, at the tip of our finger. How in God's name does any government, any leader believe that the things that are happening here will not reach into the ears and minds of the world? And that's what the United Nations Human Rights Committee came here and said, what about these things, these violations of Article 2 and 6, 17 and 18 and 19 and 6 that I have specified, and so much more? I give you some examples that I know close up. Part G. You take away money from these people so that they cannot deal with the dozens of organizations that are devoted to the well-being of one kind of people in this country. Black Guyanese, African Guyanese, if that's offensive to some people, I apologize. African Guyanese. Under the flimsiest of pretexts, audits, and say, well, here are the audits. Here they are. And then they come up with something else. It's always the shiftiness because you want to isolate, demonize, criminalize, and subjugate. And that's what happened there. You hear a voice like GHK Lall, and forgive me for referring to myself in the third person, and the first offense against nature is that an Indian man is speaking in this manner, not just for the rights of those across the demographic plane, but for all Guyanese. And when an Indian government is in power, that is anathema. That's a renegade Indian. That's a curse. So you single him out, and we will deal with you. And how do we deal with you? We vilify you. We revile you. We bear false witness against you. Go to your 10 commandments in Leviticus. The 10 commandments. Thou shalt not bear false witness. The vice president, a former president of this country, goes on his weekly show and says he hears rumors about this and that. You hear? How many persons heard that before you? That rumor, and you now find it fit to slander me by innuendo. And you think that the world will not know about this outside of Guyana, Mr. Vice President? You think, Mr. Shearer, that the world is not watching? That they don't see what I write and what other people write? And how they are dealt? Freedom of ideas, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, freedom of thought. Article 17 or 18 or 19. Please don't hold me to that, but it's right there in the covenant that we are signatory to. These things are not just signed to as a matter of form. They bring obligations, Dr. Hines. They are not nice to have things. They're not, well, we have joined the crowd and we are part of this fashionable set. It's part of the process of nation building, of growing together, of what UC Kwayana has fought for all of his life, what Cheddy Jagan and Forbes Burnham lived for in their own ways, despite their fallibilities. When we try in our little ways, in our minuscule moments, to carry that torch, we are singled out. Women in the media, for doing what? Asking questions that you have the greatest impatience with, and so you direct a stream of violence at them? How will that be excused? Some people have said the government was caught napping and it didn't come prepared, didn't do its homework. I say to hell with that. I say, how do you prepare for something that is real, that something has happened, that's something that can only be addressed with truth? That's what the United Nations Human Rights Committee came about. When Guyanese, especially those who are held as adversaries to the government, are made examples of, who are denied of their fundamental civil and political rights, that are denied their right to speak, denied their right to live, denied their right to exist with dignity, decency, and what democracy ideals are all about. This is what the Human Rights Committee came here and told us about. Somebody sent me, it's here. I'm going to try to do this out of my head. The closing comments of the UNHRC. It says, yes, we have noted what the government has done, and we recognize that, and we salute that. But then go through the concerns. We are concerned. We regret. We are concerned and concerned and concerned in this area and that area: media, extrajudicial killings, corruption, investigation of corruption, allegations of corruption. You've got a framework. Yes, you do. You have got to strengthen that. And it's got to be independent and impartial and thorough and profound. You've got to have a national human rights commission and make it work. Don't people these things. Don't people these things. These meaningful things. These things that can make a difference in this country. Anti-corruption bodies, human rights commissions, media watchdogs, checks and balances. Do not subvert them by putting people in there who are only going to say, yes, sir. Tell me what you want to do, sir. How do you want to do it? Who's got to be squeezed? What human rights is that? What civil rights is that? What political rights is that? What human dignity that we signed on to, that we must ensure as a state party, as a government, as a society, comes to each and every citizen, whether it's the junkie on the road, and excuse that word, whether it's the richest man in this country, whether it's the one that is unlovable, whether it's the one that's detestable, he or she still have rights. And that's what you must fight for, Dr. Hines, and what I must stand for, regardless of their color or their status or their knowledge. We must stand for that. If we don't have truth in us, I keep telling the leaders of this country, if we don't have truth in us, if we don't have honesty in us, then we have nothing. Thomas Huxley said a couple of centuries ago, and I will put this in my language: if we're going to stop immorality, we've got to stop lying. We've got to stop lying. And this country is littered with lies at almost every layer of it. That's what the Human Rights Commission came here about. What is all this story that we are hearing about, what the government dismisses and disparages as noise? It's not noise when an Aaron Boston is shot in his bed. It's not noise when I've got people in front of my house. It's not noise when you demonize me. It's not noise when you try to gut and it part of G. When you attack women, when you've got no self-respect as leaders, as a government, no class, when you stand for what is scurrilous, when you stand for what is coarse and crass and corrupt. People know. People have been writing. A number of us have dual citizenship. This is a this is a network world we live in. This is not the Dark Ages. And the People's Progressive Party and its top people have to come to grips with that and try to find ways to coexist with that by joining hands with those who want a better Guyana, as in trying to oppress those who say, why are we going down this road? That's what I've been saying to Dr. Jack Dale. I know he does not deserve the title, but that's how I can humble myself. Maybe even be a little untruthful to myself. And I don't like that. But I don't want to benefit at your expense. I want this country to be better because you are better. I want the opposition leader, Aubrey Norton, my brother also, another brother, to bring out the best in themselves so that his people and the Guyanese people have hope. And I want the president younger. He must leave callow and youth behind him and become what this society demands today. Human Rights Committee doesn't have to come here and lecture us and have concerns about us and regret how we are and tell us about impartial, thorough, credible, trustworthy, blah, blah, blah. Because you know why? We have made strides in every one of those respects. We are not, we've got huge gaps. Don't attack the messenger. That's the problem with the government. That's the problem with its leaders, Dr. Ali, Dr. Jack Dale, and the whole cabal of them. Look at the message and see where I am falling short. And when I fall short as leaders, when we fall short as leaders, then you get a GHK Lall. Then you get a David Hines. If you do this thing right, we're out of business. We in some respects, we there is so little else to speak about. You want me to speak about you build a few roads? That's what you've got to do with all that money you've budgeted. You want me to tell you about this project you're doing and whatever and all this thing is going to do? Show me the ones that you did right. I want to say, let's get our human relations right. And then we will get our economic relations better. We get our association with each other. That elusive goal that UC Kwayana has been striving all of his 99 years for, if we can get there, man, that will be something. If these guys would only listen and not see enemies, but see honest citizens, conscientious citizens who are working overtime, who've got nothing to get. Do you want a job, Dr. Hines? Do you want a contract? Do you want a house lot? Do you want a duty-free car? I don't want any of those damn things. But here am I talking on this program.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I care. Because there are other things I can do. There are 3 books I want to write, and the outlines are there for them for years now. But I feel that I must populate the public space to give a voice to the voiceless. And when I do so, the Human Rights Committee will hear, not only from me, but from all those Guyanese who have been hurt, all those Guyanese who have been expectant, but now are deficient. And then they have to come here when their periodic visits come. And then if it's not them, it's the World Bank. And if it's not them, it's ECLAC. And if it's not them, it's CARICOM. And on the U and another part of the UN, and on we go. The former US ambassador had to speak about this. Include people. The State Department says, it must be about inclusion, you know. And they come here and they spin it. Instead of spin it, walk a straight line, man. Walk a straight line. Then we will tell the United Nations, the human rights, you bring your questions on. Bring it on, baby. We are ready. But instead of that, now you're going to hedge and you're going to hem and you're going to haw and you're going to hurl missiles at people. They're saying, well, we want names about those who are responsible for this. Have mine. Have mine, brother.
GHK Lall giving his take on the intervention by the United Nations Human Rights Commission, which focused on human rights in Guyana over the last month. They had the government answer questions, and they've produced their reports, and they've made recommendations. And as we have done on this program, we try to put all of that in context. As we say in academia, we do not regurgitate. What we do is that we try to help ourselves to make sense of what this moment is telling us about the past, the present, and about our future. If you're just joining us, yes, it's Tuesday night, it's Politics 101, and we have GHK Lall here tonight. GHK, you spoke about inclusiveness. This past week, we saw the swearing in of the the Constitution Reform Commission that has been set up by the government, and there is some expectancy in some quarters about the work that that committee is undertaking. There is, of course, a lot of cynicism about it. What says you?
I am cynical. Count me, sir, among the cynical. Count me among the skeptical. First of all, where are the women? Why are there so few of them? I would like to see one of them, I think there are three of them, have some kind of position of influence, not just a number. Secondly, and I wrote this, I think, in the Village Voice. Yes, the PPP has its people led by the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Lall, but there are so many other PPP proxies on that commission. Oh, yes, it's going to have to get the, I think, 66 2/3 and all of that. But I see some people who I will call rabble rousers in the PPP ranks who are there to make sure that their guys don't waver on some things that just are non negotiable. Electoral reform features heavily in that. But let's go through this. You've got 20 people. I think it's 20, isn't it? Yeah. And already the thing has that feeling that it's fixed, it's skewed, it's tilted this way. For us to have reform, we were just talking about the United Nations Human Rights Commission and its recommendations. It talks about impartial, independent, thorough, probing, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. That Reform Commission, I'm glad we have one. But are we just having one to say that we did have one? That we do have one? I would like to have vested more a vision of greater possibilities coming from this thing. And I'm going down on record now, at the beginning of April of 2024, that we'll be disappointed. I wish it was otherwise. That we could say, you know what, this thing has instilled some confidence in me because there are some trustworthy people in there. There are some trustworthy people in there, people I trust. And that's a very, very high bar. However, I see a lot of the partisan in there, and that there to me is poison to a commission that is supposedly, by name, devoted to reform. Reform, we've got to come with a clear head and a clean, unfettered mind. This is what we have. This is where our bottlenecks are. These are the problems we have encountered along the way, and which we must roll up our sleeves and be determined to cut through them and come up with more than compromises. We must come up with workable solutions that bring hope, that gives some sort of viability and continuity to the Guyanese people. Not to what I conclude is the interests of the ruling party. I see too much of what is going to come out of here that's going to be favorable to the interests of the ruling party. That's going to bring us right back to square one. I for the third time, fourth time, I regret that from this get-go, that the optimism that I should have is just not there. You've got some people that are going to hold their brothers in line. No, you can't go there. You can't touch there. Remember where we started out. Remember what's our blueprint. Remember what's our minimum our baseline. We cannot go into new territory. Reform is about new territory, Dr. Hines. Reform is about going to where we should go because it gives us an opportunity to grow. It gives us an opportunity to rise and find ourselves. I don't see this coming out of here. On the issue of yes, human rights and Amerindian rights and so on and so forth, those are all lovely things. Electoral reform, if we can't get that right, and it's about the same winner takes all system, it's dead. And I do not see how there's going to be a deviation in the heads of the PPP that, well, we've tried this thing for 60 years and so on and so forth. Or, yeah, over 60 years. And it really has gotten us nowhere. We don't want to hear, oh my God, we don't want to hear, well, when you are in the opposition, you want this. And when we are in power, then we should be doing this. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than any one political party, any one section of the demographic of this country. If we're going to have reform, we have to be about what's national in scope, what's national in implications, what's national in result, what's national in possibility before we can get to what is national in result. Oh, look, this is a long road and it's going to be an uphill battle. But if we go into this thing, and I don't think that we have started out this way, with authenticity in our heads, in our thinking, that look, we must take this opportunity that we've waited for so long to sift through the quicksand. Oh yes, it can threaten to suck us in, but to sift through it, part through, and try to get to that native wisdom that will benefit this country as an electoral entity, as a societal, as a polity, as this body of people. We've been talking about PPP and PNC and AFC and whoever else. We've been talking about Indian and Black, we meaning not necessarily tonight, but over the decades, over the eras. Let us talk about what is really of Guyana, what reforms our minds, what reforms our attitudes. If we're going to hold on to the 1960s, if we're going to talk about Burnham and Jagan in the worst possible ways, then what reform are we ever going to have in ourselves to achieve? This is the challenge before us, my brother. This is the challenge before the CRC. This is what it has to battle with. And unless it comes, you got to come to this thing with a new life, with a new force, with a new way of thinking. That's reform. That's genuine reform. You're not going to touch the edges, airbrush the edges, and plaster over the cracks and say, well, we have succeeded in delivering the reform sought after by the nation. Hell no, you didn't. You haven't. You haven't. What you've done is cosmetics. And I hope I am willing to be wrong. I have no loss of faith in my head, in my mind, to be wrong. But you got to show me where I've been wrong and how much you're right. And so I think this thing, it's got too many elements of what's, as we say in gambling, and I used to like a card game, if the deck is marked from the start, then you ain't got a chance. All right? All right? That's where I am.
GHK Lall giving his take on the Constitutional Reform Commission that was just sworn in by the president, what his expectations are. He has made it very clear where he stands. And I think many of us share that view, those concerns. After all, this is Guyana. Gabriel, I'm going to ask you some quick questions as we wind down, rapid response, as we say. This was not on our agenda, but we don't have you often, so um, we want to squeeze as much as we can in the little time we have. Uh, Venezuela, Maduro, um, Guyana, Venezuela, Essequibo, the new state.
The man ain't going to stop. This man is not going to get his teeth out of the flesh of Guyana. And what he's waging is the equivalent of psychological warfare here. He does his law, he names his governor, he carves out, he changes his map, he draws his line, and he keeps ratcheting up the pressure. And if you notice, his language never relents in its hostility and animosity towards the government and Guyana and Exxon.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't stopping. And by the way, excuse me, one of these days, I think he may be daring enough to step
Mm-hmm.
across the line.
Yes.
That's what I am apprehensive about. He's going to at least to test it to see how far he gets.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
what we got to be concerned about.
That's the beast we're dealing with.
Yes.
Gaza.
Oh my God. For you, for me, for our fellow Guyanese, Amerindian, Indian, African, mixed, that's what happens to colored people. After all the talk about democracy and civilization, of Christianity and modernity, that's the lot of colored people when they are in the way. When there's something that you represent, land, treasure, path to the sea, gas rights, whatever it is, they find a way that all the civilization flees. And we can't even talk about a ceasefire when hospitals are bombed and children are dying and the elderly are maimed. And relief food workers are killed. What has happened? Who is the savage now? Who is the savage now? Haiti. Go back to Christophe, Henri Christophe, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Toussaint Louverture, and go back to what they did there, the French, and how they claim reparations. How they claim the enslavers claimed reparations for their losses, right? And so you start there and you come down the line and you come to Gaza, and my word to my fellow Guyanese is Gaza could be you. The Gazans
Yes.
could be you and us.
And you touched on Haiti because that's where I was going next, but it shows the interconnection that we start with Gaza and we come to Haiti. A new story that caught the imagination of Guyanese more than normal. Government borrows from an Indian firm money to buy two airplanes from another Indian firm. Turns out the two airplanes, the money that they paid for the two airplanes is worth four airplanes. GHK Lall.
Why does everything we do in this country that involve money got some kind of double cross in it? One look like double cross, smell like double cross.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I've been on Wall Street, and them is the biggest bandidos and desperados in the world. And I'm lucky to still be with a clean head and face and skin. I hear men swear on the Bible, oh, you can trust me and whatever. What you gonna go and buy? You so smart. You know all these things about corruption and anti-corruption. And yet you could, let me put it innocently, you could get caught in something like that. After all them thing where you been, all them skullduggery and shenanigans where you been involved in, you gonna make some smart man outsmart you. Let me use this thing to the Creoles now. You gain from this one for take money from that one, for buy aircraft from that one. What nonsense you're telling me? Who giving Guyanese the shaft? The big man says it's a good deal because you got training and you got to fly the people here and all them kind of thing. I would like a ticket on those flights.
I suppose something that is real to you, real to all Guyanese, blackouts.
Look, and I got articles on all of these, almost all of
Yes,
these coming.
I know. That's why
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
done right, done right. Here's
yeah.
this thing. Let me go back. Simple metric. Generator, I can pass generator. I can pass who spend money and who do wrong and who do right. Here's the thing. I am not on GPL. Well, I don't depend on GPL. GPL for me is a backup. But I'll tell you from the period 2015 to 2020, this is the showstopper of a position. Whatever the minister of works, who is that? David Patterson and the David Granger administration did at the GPL. The blasted blackouts cut down severely. Bottom line, blackouts were less. And when they came, they were shorter. Don't ask me how they do it. Don't ask me what kind of fuel they use and how much more megawatts they get and generator they buy and who they buy it from. Bottom line, what from me as a consumer and you as and the Guyanese as purchasers of electricity, blackouts were less from the period 2015 to 2020. I don't worry about who inherited what and who left. And I met Mr. Albert Gordon several times, and the man knew what he was about. That man knew what he was about. Let me go to the little administrative thing. You yourself say a banner name, we name Bharat Dindyal.
Mhm.
CEO. I understand he's not too well now, so we pray for him. He's a brother. I understand he's no longer. But in the 2015, you report done in 2014, your report, you, Mr. PPP government, said that demand performed below expectations. You can't have below expectations in a marginal organization, Dr. Hines. You cannot. You don't have that luxury. That man has to come and deliver above it. And yet, when the government went out, the coalition, you're going to bring back the same man. Who are you looking for, do, buddy? What are you looking to give to the Guyanese people other than mediocrity, other than the same old story? Now you bring another banner and you put it there, and he's some head or something. And we blackouts one day, I can't remember it was Pago Day, but it's them Spata holidays. I there here and I hearing the ministry generator command 1 hour and change it 2 hours. 3:44 to wherever. 5:44. 3 minutes later I'm coming back. Gone again. In the afternoon and the same thing. I said I should write about this, I held off. I see a big full page ad from the GPL. Hey, listen, at so and so time, this is what happened. And we blah, 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 and grid and BIS and whatever. Here's the story. In the 4.5 years of the Granger administration and David Patterson's oversight of the GPL, we had less blackouts. We didn't have oil money then, comrade. We didn't have people running for lend me money, right? Because we got oil as collateral. And somehow the blackout business, it wasn't solved, let's be clear,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it was
Mhm.
greatly improved. So, what really going on here? Some people tell me there's a school of thought that says the blackout is for sway we in the direction of the whale's gas to shore. All things are possible in Guyana. You know, you're so bad now. You're desperate for anything. Whales gas to shore, where would cars bring it on? If it's not
Yeah.
even 5 cents or half of the price, bring the damn thing on. Let me get it. Put we, excuse me, put we out of the misery. I can't deal with AC, but this is what happened.
Mhm.
Put we out of the misery. Put we out of this thing here for the third time. Last time. Blackouts, coalition had a hand around it. Since 2020, something else take over. Some zombie take over the place. I really can't go beyond. This is where there. Why can't that have been
GHK
extended?
Lall.
Yeah, that's
GHK
it.
Lall, thank you. Thank you very much, my brother, for coming through on yet another edition of Politics 101. You've given us
Thank you.
more than we uh, uh, expected at the beginning, but as usual, you are a busy man, and we are grateful for what
Thank
you
you.
are able to bring here. Thank you very much,
All the
my
best
brother.
to you. Good.
Thank you. And to you, the audience, I want to say thanks again for staying with us, because you are the ones who make this show real. And of course, we continue to do our duty. Tomorrow night, Dr. Henry Jeffrey is going to be here. And I hope you all come out in large numbers as you have come out tonight. And the usual story: love, love, love.